Good evening. This is Mike Farley with Poolside Perspectives, and hope you guys are having a great day. So we're continue our information on Water Safety Month. So May is Water Safety Month, and we're just trying to encourage people to find information, share information, and just be a more educated group to just know things that you can do or recommend to friends to do to create water safety situations. So we're going to look at a lot of things this month. We're going to look at fencing. We're going to talk about alarms. We're going to look at maybe even a movable floor. But today we're going to talk about one of the things that most commonly comes to thought when we talk about water safety, and that's the cover, the auto cover for the pool. So I've been designing since 1992 in the swimming pool industry, and the auto cover was something that was very prevalent where I worked in Northern California. In Northern California, there was a huge concern with homeowners in regards to safety. And so this was a piece of equipment that was very heavily considered when you were doing a pool project. And so I had one neighborhood that I remember when I worked in Davis, California, and I probably had 25 different covers in that neighborhood. So if you wanted to see any type of cover, you could go into that neighborhood and see all those, which was quite helpful when people were trying to consider if they wanted to cover or not, because we could go look at different applications and sizes and features and colors and different lids. So we're going to talk about a lot of those things here since we're not in that neighborhood, and try to pass on some photographs and things that you may want to consider to look at when you look at a cover. And so the first thing about a cover is most of the projects that I do today, the cover it's this cool magic trick. The cover is retracted below the deck and into this secret compartment. And so as you push a button, this cover just appears over the pool, and then you push a button and then it retracts it back into the space. And so it's a really awesome situation from an aesthetic standpoint, from a function standpoint, and the fact that it's not really noticeable in the overall design. However, there are other types of covers that you can do that are a little bit more noticeable, but they serve some different purposes. So the first thing is there are people that come to the situation that they purchase a home and they want to cover the pool, and there's no way to do a under deck mount situation, given the circumstances that they would have to tear everything up with the deck and the pool and do structural work. And so they actually come in and mount tracks on top of the decking, and they put what I call a bench down at the end of the pool. And in this bench is where the cover is rolled up into. So you have this nice redwood bench that runs the length of the width of the pool, and the cover runs across the decking and retracts into that bench. So is it a little noticeable that there are tracks on the deck? Yes. But, from a safety standpoint, we've now created a safe environment, which that's really important to some people. So, and they don't have the costs to totally remove everything. So now I have done projects that we had an existing pool and they decided to remodel the pool. And in that remodel, we added a cover situation, and it was an under deck mounted situation. So with that set up, we had a water feature wall on one end of the pool that was already there that they wanted to keep in place. So that meant there's only one side that the cover can roll up on. You generally have two sides to choose from, but in this case, there's only one side since we had the water feature wall on down the other side. So we were going to roll the cover up then on the shallow end of the pool where the entry steps were. And we came in and built the box where the cover rolls up into, which is all under the ground. Now, one note is when I first started in 1992, they were still doing boxes that the cover rolled up in out of wood. They would build them out of redwood, and the covers would roll up in this space. Now, it wasn't shortly after 1992 that they realized that even redwood that held up a really long time, this is a space that was constantly had moisture in it, and it wasn't the best situation for long term. So it was better to build the structure out of gunite with the shell of the pool and incorporate all that as one whole piece. But early on, in early days, the box was actually of wood, and it was recessed underneath the deck. But so we were coming in and putting this remodel on, and we recessed the cover box down, and then we came in and built that so it retracted out from the shallow end of the pool, and then when it hit the very end, it touched up against the water wall. Most people prefer to open it from the step side, but sometimes they wanted to keep the water wall as a feature as you looked from the family room of the house looking out across the pool. So there's lots of different things to consider when you're trying to decide where the box is going to go. So the first thing is the box can go above ground on a existing pool, or it can be placed underground when you're designing a new pool or doing a remodel. And that box, it's like you're going to take a roll of paper towels and you got to hide it somewhere. So it's hidden in the roll of paper towels is in this box. And what happens on one end, you have a motor. Okay, so the motor's down in this box, making this paper towel roll spin and causing the paper towel roll to send the cover out or retract it back into its space. So when the motor, you have to leave space for the motor when you're doing the design to access the motor for repairs, as well as access the cover for the repairs over a period of time. And so there's a lid on the box. So your lid can be a number of different materials. So the first thing that's most commonly done, that's most economical, is they'll actually come in with an aluminum lid. And that aluminum lid can be flush with the deck, or it can be slightly raised above the deck. So there's a couple of different applications on how it can be done. And then there's an aluminum lid that's a non-walk-on lid. So if you walk on it, it bends. It's not a very heavy gauge aluminum. So it's just basically to cover the space, which most homeowners I've found do not believe that's very practical, because most homeowners have kids. The kids are running all over the place, and so they want something that the kids can comfortably walk on. So there is a heavier gauge material that you can put on, which is now a walk-on metal lid, and that can be done in place. So that's the next situation that's considered. Your lid also for the box, which is the most common situation that I deal with, is what's called a walk-on lid. And the walk-on lid are stainless steel trays that are about 1 foot by 1 foot. And in this tray, you can put concrete that matches your concrete deck, or stone that matches your stone deck. So it helps the appearance of the cover disappear. So with walk-on lids, it's a very visual pleasing situation. You just have to understand that the cavity that this is going to go in is going to extend past the pool, because the motor's over on one side, and then you have a slight gear that's on the other side, so it goes a little bit past on both ends of the layout. So I've had people before like, well, we want to make it all perfectly uniform all the way around the pool. And that's difficult to do from a masonry unit standpoint, because you've got these lids that you can't make really big because they'd weigh too much to lift off of the cover box. So we have our box, we have our cover. So we've got the one that's mounted on top, we've got one that's mounted below. So one of the things that comes into play with this is a lot of people are like, well, how big a cover can you put out there? So I did some phone calls because I didn't know the answer to this off the top of my head. And so what I found was when you do a cover, The maximum size that you can get is 16 feet wide by 80 feet long. Now, that's a long cover. So if somebody's really into exercise and they want to do laps, that would work very well. Now, the widest you can make a cover is 30 feet wide on a non-vanishing edge pool. If it's a vanishing edge pool, you can actually make it has to be 20 feet wide is the maximum you can do. So those are some measurements. So if you do a 30-foot wide, you can't have it 80 feet long. It's too much mass to actually work with the motor. And so when you make it wider, you have to make it shorter. So the biggest that you can get with 30 feet was 52 feet in length, which I've done several of those. And the reason they wanted to do that size is they wanted a diving pool from a safety standpoint. So with a diving board, and the diving board actually cantilevered over the box with walk-on lids. And so we now can have a deep end of the pool, but then most diving envelopes take about 32 feet to go from 8.5 feet to the 3.5 foot mark. But they also wanted a spa and a ledge under the cover as well. So we wanted a spa that would sit 8 people. We wanted a ledge that was big enough for a couple of chairs that we could take on and off in that space. And so now with that takes up about 9 feet and 9.5 feet in the size. Plus you've got the 32 feet for the diving well. So that leaves you a little bit of space, and with the 52 feet for some shallow area that's basically flat. So you could play water basketball and, a little bit of water volleyball in that area before it starts dropping off with a pool that's that big, especially one that's, 30 feet wide. You can play volleyball from, side to side instead of across. So anyway, that size pool with a cover will work and allow you to do a lot of different things. Now, one thing to understand is that's what you can do under one cover. I have not personally designed several projects that used multiple covers to create the covering of the space. So you could have one cover that covers part of an L, that's the deep end, and then you could have another cover that covers the shallow part of the pool. So there's that. You could create an L-type situation with an auto cover. The other thing that I've seen done is I've seen covers come from two different directions to the middle, and both those it came in with a different situation so they could have a little bit of different shape. So now talking about shape, everybody assumes it has to be a rectangle to have a cover. That is not so. So one of the popular things when I first started in the industry is nobody wanted a rectangle. Everybody wanted freeform pools. And so one of the ways that you handled a cover is you would have a patio area and you would step down 6 inches into the pool space. And that whole pool space would get a cover over it. And inside that pool space, that's a rectangle, 6 inches down, you would have your freeform shaped pool. And so now we could put the freeform shaped pool into the 6-inch step down area, and the 6-inch step down area received a cover that covered the pool and the decking in that space. So you could have a freeform pool with an auto cover. So that was a different solution that was commonly done. I haven't seen it done recently because most people like rectangular pools, but this cover has some flexibility to cover different shapes depending on the creativity of how you come up with a way to run the tracks and put the cover over the space itself. So when you do a vanishing edge, you cover the pool itself. The only way that I've ever done a vanishing edge with a cover is we then came in and used grates over the top of the vanishing edge basin, and those grates were covered with gravel. So that way it would create a safety situation that small children and small human beings, small adults, big adults, any size person can't get into that space because there's the grate and the gravel, as well as, pets and wildlife and things like that are also protected from that aspect, which a lot of people appreciated because with the vanishing edge, that space is out of sight. You don't see that space. And so there's people that do a pool without a cover at all that do like that solution with a vanishing edge using the grates and the gravel from a safety standpoint, and also to help keep some debris out. So that's how I've used a pool with a vanishing edge and a vanishing edge basin. So we had a cover for the pool. We had grates and gravel for the basin itself. So different shapes can be done. There's different applications of this. So one of the different things that people consider with a cover is, do I put the spa under the cover or do I put the spa somewhere else? And some people view the spa not as a heavy concern from a safety situation because the maximum depth in most spas is 3.5 feet. And so some people feel that that's safe then for the environment that they're creating in their backyard. And so they will have the spa separate than under the covered space. Now, we do a lot of spas that are underneath the cover, and usually they're in conjunction with the steps going in. So that makes an efficient space. Although I've had some people be like, well, if I do this really wide diving area, the diving board space doesn't need to be 30 feet wide. So I could put the spa down in that space as well and still have a nice diving well. And then I have a bigger shallow area as it comes up to the, shallow end of the pool. So that's very efficient too from a space use. So if I do a spa that is not under the cover, then I've got to create a way for the water to run out of the spa and run into the pool from a circulation standpoint of circulating it. So we have come up with some creative ways to do that, usually using a small gap space in between the spa spillway and the pool coping so the water can run through that gap and then run underneath into the cover has been a very effective way to have that circulation situation. So another thing that becomes an issue is with water features, and how do you handle water features in conjunction with the cover? Because you don't want to turn a water feature on and dump the water on top of the cover. And so usually there's something that will prevent the water feature from turning on when it's in cover mode. So that's set up with the electronics and the control situation. So one thing also, speaking of electronics, is, one of the things about a pool cover is when you cover it, in most cases, you can run the equipment less. And because it's not requiring as much from a filtration and a sanitation standpoint because it's covered. It's not going to allow the sun to develop algae because the sun's not hitting the water surface because it's under the cover. It's not allowing debris into the pool because there's a cover there. And so a lot of people will program when their cover is in place that the filter system will not run as much, so therefore saving electrical costs on running the equipment. Now, everything in the U.S. today is variable speed, so it runs with a lot lower cost than everything in the past, but still it would reduce some costs and give you some savings with the cover if you programmed your computer to do that situation for you. So the other alternative that I've seen done, I have not personally done, is I've had people put the spa as a self-contained unit, and they put a cover on the spa as well as a cover on the pool. So that is certainly something that can be done to create, a safety situation if you so desired. One situation that requires some creativity is when you have a hillside and you have a cover, you have to create a flat space for this cover and the lids. But you can be creative in how the elevations change around that. Now, I've got a project that we just recently finished last year. The cover box was up against the hillside, so we had to put a retaining wall after the cover box to retain the whole hill. So there was a flat space there along the edge of the pool, and then the retaining wall started after that. So that's one situation. So I've had also several projects where we've had the cover and the cover box was done, and we dropped an elevation, and we actually created basically a bench there so you could sit, around like a fire pit situation. So there is some creative situations you can do as long as you keep everything around that cover box where you're taking the lids off has to be flat, but you can raise and lower all the other components and decking around the pool to create different terraces and different effects. So why a cover? So the first thing that people look about with a cover is evaporation. So with a cover, when you have the cover in place, you're going to reduce your evaporation, in some cases with the makeup water that's needed in the pool by 30 to 50% on a typical situation. And the reason why is you don't have the evaporation because the sun is not allowing the water to evaporate off because there's a cover there in place. So that's one thing is you can save some water with a cover. The second thing is a lot of times people use the cover because they're trying to extend the season. So cover makes it real easier for it to stay warmer in the spring and stay warmer in the fall because the thing that takes heat away from a pool is wind. And so if the pool's covered, in a typical evening and the wind blows across it, you could see a 5-degree temperature drop. That's not unheard of at all. In fact, it can be a lot more than that. But so your heating costs are going to be reduced because, the cover blocks the wind. And so therefore you're not going to have as much heating required if you're trying to extend the season in the spring and the fall. So in a lot of parts of the country, you can almost double the swim season earlier and later with a cover situation because if you do heat it up, then it stays heated up because it's protected from the wind. So it's you with your temperature drop of 5 degrees on average in an evening. If you cover it, you're going to cut that in half, and it might be 2.5 degrees. So that helps from the heating aspects. Plus, if you go and heat a pool, we commonly would heat our pool in February. The reason we would heat our pool in February is because we had 3 birthdays in the month of February, and so pool parties are a lot more cooler than going to Chuck E. Cheese. So the heating costs for me to do that were under a couple $100 to raise it from 40 degrees up to 80 degrees. And once I got it up to 80 degrees, a pool does not lose temperature real quickly. If the air temperature is not, if it's freezing outside, it'll drop from 80 down some. But we would have a party one weekend, we'd have a party the next weekend, usually 2 weeks later was spring break. So it was very common for, us to use the pool in February and March. And then, a lot of times I had 2 kids that were fish, they would swim, for the rest of the year. And so if you had a cover over that, that would make it even easier to do and retain that heat and extend those seasons. So one thing that we also mentioned that already was electrical savings. There is a possibility of electrical savings if you can reduce the amount of time that the equipment needs to run because you're protected from debris with the cover and you're also protected with algae with the cover. So that helps in both those aspects, which also then ties into the chemicals that you're going to use in the pool. Because you have less evaporation, you're going to have less burn off of the chlorine. You're going to have less need for chemicals because it's protected better. So, those are all reasons that people consider a cover. Now, the other thing that when people look at from a safety standpoint, a lot of times people are considering other options, and other options might be fencing. And with fencing, that's going to block a view. And so they're trying to keep the view open to the space. And so the cover is less obstructive in blocking that view. Along with that, most covers come in a number of different colors. And so most of the time you can find something that complements the deck color. And so it blends with the decking. So it seems like it's a large paving area. The other thing some people choose to do is make it a color that looks similar to the watercolor. So it simulates the pool from a visual standpoint. Even though we don't have water there, at glance, it kind of looks like there's water in the space. Other people will make it look like lawn. So it looks like a section of grass there in the decking, the center of the decking area. And so from an aesthetic standpoint and looking nice, the fabrics help blend with the setting. A lot of the companies have custom fabric colors that they can do to even blend with more items that you may want to associate that with, especially with the decking. But the other thing, the reason people use a cover is it makes it's easy to use. Most covers are controlled by a simple switch, or it's something that's a key a lot of times. And within a minute, you can open the pool completely or shut the pool completely. So very quickly from a time standpoint. So the biggest thing, though, with a cover is safety. We want to create a safe environment for the people that are using this environment. So one of the things I use cover pools a lot for the installations of the product that I use cover pools as the manufacturer of the cover that I use. They've been in business since 1962. So they're over 60 years in business. They're actually older than me, not by much, but yes, just a little. And they have not one case of drowning that they're aware of in those 62 years. So that's a pretty good safety track record on that situation. So that's why people look at covers and, look at that product. The nice thing too with the key operated situation, it's not something your kids can just go over and flip a switch. You have to put a key in and turn it. And so, mom and dad have the key. It then becomes a safe situation for that. Now, sometimes it's not kids that people are looking at for safety. Sometimes it's pets that people are looking at for safety. I've had a number of clients that they just want the pool to be protected because this is a second home. And so when they're not in their second home, they want the pool where, neighborhood kids and stuff like that can't get into it. So it's just a protection situation for everybody that's involved. So those are some things to think about as well. So if you're looking for all those features, if you're looking for safety, if you're looking to extend your season, if you're looking to keep your pool cleaner, if you're looking for better chemicals and, better electrical costs, if you're looking for all those things, cover is certainly the best thing in the world for you. Now, sometimes people are like, well, I'm only looking for a couple of those things. Is the cover going to be the best situation for me? If safety's the number one driver, then there's not many other things to consider that's going to perform a higher level of safety than a cover. With safety, the thing I always talk to people about is you want to look at multiple layers of safety prevention. So you want to look at, a cover can be one of them, but you may still want to look at alarms on your doors. You may want to look at one of the number one things is to teach your kids how to swim. So you want to look at different things to provide that safety. But a cover is one of the best. And the fact, I don't know how you get into a cover covered pool without getting the cover off the pool. I mean, it's difficult to do. Now, there are a few things you have to be aware of that create a little bit of maintenance issues and things like that. So the first thing is, what happens when it rains? So when it rains, your water is going to start building up on top of the cover. And so now we're trying to keep the water under the cover. Now we got water on top of the cover. And so there's a special pump that you can put on top of the cover, which actually pumps that water out of that space. And so it keeps that space from having a layer of water building up in there. So that's one thing to think about. The other thing is leaves. Okay. Now I had a client years ago, and she thought that every time you rolled the cover up and it was covered with leaves, the leaves would magically disappear. And this is not the case. And she had the nastiest cover pit where you rolled the cover up in. I mean, it had to be serviced all the time because it had a whole bunch of decaying leaves and stuff like that, because she would never do anything with the debris that was on the cover. She just rolled it up and expected it to disappear. So when you have a cover and you have leaves that are on the cover, you're typically going to have to get the blower out and blow those leaves off the top of the cover. And that requires a little bit of maintenance before you open the pool up. So just as you would have leaves on the ground, you'd have to clean them up. You're going to have to clean them off the cover fabric as well. So that's something that does require a little bit of work. So the cover doesn't make it magically maintenance free in removing debris and stuff like that. You still have to do maintenance to clean the cover off itself. So there's just a few things to look at. So the only other issue with a cover is there's the cost. So the cover is an expensive feature, but some people look at this as an investment, and the investment of someone's safety and the life is something that's really important. Now, having a cover, when you open the cover and everybody goes and enjoys the pool still needs to be monitored from a safety standpoint. You still are going to need to watch your children. You're still going to make sure that they know how to swim. But the cover helps when we're not using the space. It provides a heavier layer of safety than an uncovered body of water. So just you got to look at all the aspects on how you're going to use your space and what's going to work well for you. So hopefully these are all helpful tips that you can look at and try to figure out what's going to work best for you from a safety standpoint. And as I mentioned, there's a number of things that we're going to talk about later this month. So if you have questions about certain things in regards to safety around a swimming pool, please send those requests in. We did have a lot of people that commented in regards to the ISR swimming technique that we discussed last week, and said that, we had a lot of people that have successfully used that themselves or with their children, and a lot of comments about that. So anyway, hopefully we can come up with some other things that you're interested in. Send those questions into the website, the social media, and we'll get those questions answered for you. So one question that came in: what's an average life expectancy of a cover, the actual cover part? So 6 to 8 years is one of the things that I found doing some research. And of course, that's based on how well you keep your water chemistry and how routinely you maintain the cover. And that could extend the life expectancy beyond 6 to 8 years. The other thing I know from a maintenance standpoint, with different covers, there's different pulley systems to make this cover work. And some of them use rope, and some of them use a steel wire that pulls the cover open and shut. So the rope is something that's going to wear out much quicker than actually a steel wire would. So that's something to check on when you're talking to someone about covers, on what type of mechanism that makes the motor and the cover all work together. So a couple other things just to think about.
So now we're talking pellet grills. I didn't realize there were so many different ways to cook. I'm looking at that sign right there and saying there's 15 ways to cook.
Right. There's 15 ways to cook on al fresco. Here's a category that is it's hot. If you were to ask us about the growth in our store, we would point you to what we've talked about already and touch on some of the main grill companies. Pellet Grill is what's in the forefront right now. This particular pellet grill is made by Yoder. They're out of Kansas.
Very robust looking.
Very robust. It's about a 400-pound grill. You can get it on the cart in 3 different colors, like from orange, black, or silver. They have an open frame cart. A lot of customers ask, can I build this in? Yes, you can take the head off of the unit, do a built-in. This has Wi-Fi. This is for that customer that wants, as we talked before, space and ease of use. It is Wi-Fi. You can connect to your phone, but it's also cloud-based. So if I wanted to go out of state or out of town and control the temperature and monitor it, you would do that through your Wi-Fi at your house. Starts on this side. It has a 20-pound hopper. This is where your fuel will go inside of the unit. It has 2 meat probes. Let's say I was doing a pork shoulder and a brisket at the same time. The probe leads would go through the interior wall and probe the meat here. It has its ambient temperature inside of it, and it tells you everything on your phone. You can either go manually or you can go remote with your phone.
So you're telling me you can cook 2 pieces of meat at the same time?
Yes, you can. Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
We've had on this grill chicken thighs, bacon wrapped carrots, bacon wrapped carrots. Don't knock it till you try. It's amazing. Kind of get a sweet and salt flavor with it. You notice that we have a Primo baking stone. We've had this in our store probably 10, 11 years. You can bake inside of this grill. There's a pizza. You can go directly here, or there's a pizza oven attachment that you can put inside of it. What can you do with the pellet grill? They've kind of taken it to another level from direct grilling. You have a door access here that's removed. I can sear it, 700 degrees and do steaks. So you could set this up to a direct grill, bake, roast, or smoke, just like you would a ceramic grill.
That thing looks so robust built that you could put a hitch on it and tow it behind your car. It almost looks like.
It is. These are pneumatic wheels on the cart model. It's for mobility. It makes it ease of use. If you wanted to carry it to an event, if you're going to cook for 50 baseball players, you've got it. You've got it whipped with this, with Yoder.
So do most people put it on a cart? So with a smoker, you have smoke, and so you have everybody's gathered in the kitchen area. Right. A lot of times people want to have their smoker a little bit removed from the entertainment space.
They do, and this doesn't plume smoke like a stick burner that we feed to smoke Texas barbecue. When you light this grill and it goes into its act, the smoke goes into a blue smoke mode, and that's. And it's not as prominent. However, you're correct with what you say. You want to find an area. We'll find that we design a full kitchen, and then we'll have maybe an area reserved for just this equipment.
I do a lot of times an L-shaped kitchen, right. Or a U-shape, and it's on one of the legs, and it's away from the people.
That's correct.
Or I've also done kind of an island style.
Right.
A galley style, where I've got one, counter, and then I've got another counter right behind me that,
Sure.
But this is a blue smoke similar to what you get out of the Primo or the Egg.
It is.
Not like your heavy smoke out of this thing.
And it's correct. Like you said, you want it end of island, outside perimeter. You don't want it up inside wall. You want it to be able to breathe here. So air pulls in here. You've got 2 fans that pull air through here. You've got pellets that actually drop into what we call a burn pot. There's a ceramic igniter that burns these, and then the bellowing effect is the speed of the fan controlled by the thermocouple.
Okay. So there's different flavor pellets? Here, different,
There is.
different
So
foods?
there's different flavor profiles. The most popular one is the pecan and cherry mix, which is competition, but we carry all flavors from hickory, apple, cherry. We carry a product of pellet called Jack's Pellets, made by Jealous Devil. It's a hickory, maple, and cherry mix. It's one of our top SKUs. There's different in mesquite. Mesquite cooking in Texas, we know it's not a weed, but we'll usually use it as a coal base. Mesquite pellets is very light, and it's nice with this. So
Oh, it's not too heavy.
not too heavy.
Oh, okay.
bitter.
That's, yeah, you got to be careful with
Yeah,
mesquite.
we do. We know that. So.
Okay, awesome.
So, in closing, this is Mike Farley, and glad you were able to share this time with me today. So, Kevin's not here, and Kevin started actually chemotherapy today and additional radiation. And so, if you guys just keep him in your thoughts and prayers, I'd greatly appreciate it. And I'm sure you can hit him up on social media and give him all the encouragement. He would really appreciate that. So we'll be continuing the rest of May looking at water safety and the other items that we could consider on that. So again, send your questions in. We'll look forward to talking with you soon.